Well, here it is. This is going to be the reflection of my first cruise, and I would like to talk about where I was in thinking of this, to how it happened, then where what I was doing, and then the afterwards events into this incredible experience. I want to first acknowledge that this is for sure something I had been thinking about and never really went into actually uh, doing until now for whatever reason. And sometimes I just get the ideas about what I should do first in my life rather than at the end. And for a lot of folks, I think during the retirement phase or uh, being unable to work for whatever reason, take this time and engage in going on a cruise, or you know being able to enjoy their free time the way that they want to spend it to, and traveling can be one of those activities. So I want to say that when I was researching what kind of cruise I would like to take on, the idea of hitting multiple countries at the same time really was my driving motivating decision. And then I started thinking about activities, budget, and all of those other factors that people take into consideration. And I'm talking weird is because of my what is this called? Retainer. And I am really excited to just talk about this. I think that this is really an opportunity for me to begin diving into what goes on to the thought process for some folks who want to do solo traveling or forming it for others. And for me, I believe that traveling is my own workplace. And so it's what I love to do. So let's go ahead and talk about it. I, for sure, I have a journal with me right now, but I also had another journal that when I started researching cruises, by the way, I really had only the idea that it would be on a boat and there would be many people on that boat. And I would say that the movement you have to take into consideration what how I would feel physically. And I'm going from island to island, so I would say, okay, I'm gonna have a lot of downtime and possibly access to the internet would be limited. So I went to with this idea of that. The more I started researching, then the more it was like, oh, it gets expensive when you add those amenities. So like an all inclusive was about 4,500, I would say, and that's including internet, and that is like 30 or 70 per day. And so for me, I thought about, well, if this is the time for me to disconnect, although I sacrifice being connectivity with my family every day, then let me go ahead and make a safe word with them, and just in case anything may happen to me, or if somebody's reaching out to them, they would know what that safe word is and who my contacts are. So I made sure to email that ahead of time, right? And so I said, okay, let me write this down. So I wrote down the places I was going to go, the length of stay, and the dock as much as possible, if possible, as well as the excursions that I would have um, followed and engaged on, so that when I do land, I may have some sort of Wi Fi or internet on the country. And I also paired it with this Google Doc. And so with this Google Doc, I don't know how this is going to affect it, but I hope you can see the Excel. Oh, this is not even a Google Doc. This is an Excel spreadsheet. Look at me. I This is something that I developed just from experience of what I like to do when I travel. But let's see. I hope this also doesn't close at 5 minutes. I wonder if there's a cap on this. Okay, there isn't. So I put at the very top the flight information, when it would leave, as well as the when I landed. I made this document available offline just in case I had no connection to the internet when I landed, even though this is in Miami. So I just wanted to be safe. Um, with this in mind, emergency number to call the cruise line Holland America. Line representatives are available 24 hours per day. So just to make sure that this document had everything I needed when I was offline, I also shared this with a family member. And then here I put date, leave at, location, departure, explore, and cost, which are some of the tabs up here. And then an example on row number 3. Here I then included the places that I was visiting. So United States, US Virgin Islands, Trinidad and Tobago, capital port of Spain, and all of these were capitals, fortunately for me, since I also enjoy visiting every capital of the country that I'm staying at. This was really fit within my criteria of what I'm looking for. And France, Martinique, Fort de France, St. Lucia, Castries, Saint Martin, Philipsburg, and this is Kingdom of the Netherlands, Antigua and Barbuda, St. John's, Turks and Caicos Islands, Grand Turk, and then in the Bahamas it was Half Moon Cay, which is apparently a fort which renamed from Fort San Salvador to Half Moon Cay, taken over by the cruise line. They've invested about $1 billion or something like that. So I had to do more research on that, and then it was confirmed while I was there. And meeting some of the people on the cruise ship who have done this cruise multiple times gave me a little bit more insight. And I wrote down the dates here, the time of arrival, when the port would disembark, and then some preliminary research from some of the places, plus the cost that I included here. I wanted to include the potential places that I would visit. So this is a little bit of my pre-writing, and over the span of 14 days, I would have visited those 8 places. I call them countries, and some of these are territories. So, that could be a separate video about the geopolitics. And that was really enticing. And so, then for the price point, it was upsetting because for a solo traveler, you pay more rather than having somebody with you, which was like a $500 difference. $1,500 difference, to be honest, because in that way you would be splitting it with somebody else. However, I would say that I ended up having the low end of the bargain. And for my first time going through this and experiencing that, I would say that it was fine for this go around, given everything that I had experienced with the knowledge that I took in to go into there rather than um, not having doing this at all. I think that I'm definitely taking so much away in the way in which I want to travel, and it formulates really what I like and what I would avoid doing, right? And so I would like to do this to support others in their decision making of is this right for them and what they could take away from my experience. So if I go into this notes portion, talking this is really interesting because I had actually reached out to each uh, I reached out first to the operation tour guide people and asked, is there a main port or not? And many of them gave me like options about where I could be picked up for my excursion after I landed because some of the boats apparently or cruises, right, either align at the same location or same dock, so there could be as many as 6 or more, or some of them have tenders, which was news to me because that means basically you dock like a pretty good portion away, like a 15-minute to 20 minutes away from land, and then you take a separate boat that carries every passenger there. And so that's a little waiting time. And when you're when you're docking or disembarking, you just have to take that into your planning so that you make it to that boat that carries them to the other boat, the one that you're staying at. And given many factors, weather, safety, or captain's choice, they may not even finalize these ports until you're on the actual trip. So that's a risk factor that I think moving forward and in having more insight, I I would only purchase the internet for that purpose. And for whatever reason, I was lucky enough to not have any of those factors that I mentioned play a role into um, having any troubles with actually going on in my excursions. So here, when I reached out to Holland America, they said that they aren't finalized until the day of arrival. Therefore, any changes could would be up to their discretion essentially. And so here they gave me a link, whatimport.com, so that I may be able to view what ports are available when making my decisions for going off excursions not listed inside of the actual website of the cruise, because the cruise provides websites or links to sign up for some hiking or other activities that you may want to do, right? And but that's up to your, like, that's your risk. And let's see, enroll into, and so then some other notes from my travels is enroll into the step program. This is making sure that your information, somebody knows where they can contact, like home or your emergency contacts. I also have Rakuten available to get any points back or cash back if I make any payments, and it's really good, which is a separate video to be honest. Tips for self: do gate one in non-English speaking countries, global entry. So I have my global entry and then my traveling poetry. This is a my poems that I like to include based off the places that I visit, and just the perspectives I take away and how that translate into my own ideas of what these places are. So nothing for you to look into. Then before, I have a checklist such as my outfits, my reusable water bottle. A lot of the places recommend bringing them so that you reduce litter. I pack my backpack and a day bag when I solo travel. Cash, and then the budget that I would set myself with. Hygiene, making sure that my hygiene bag has all of my toiletries, the charger of the specific country or countries, souvenir personal bag. I carry my backpack and then a personal item just so that I can put the souvenirs and limit myself to that, because I rarely bring a suitcase back home. But again, those are things that I think about. PDF docs of any places that I need to take into consideration of like my vaccines that they may require. Of course, my passport, my this is for my baby, which he is a 10-year-old dog, and so things that I need to do before and when I come back. I like to plan out my outfits when I return from work so that I let's think of one last thing. Anything that I may need clean so that I can come home to a clean home. My headphones are a must. I love listening to music abroad. Any books that I may need to bring along with me and discard. Download items such as some songs or movies. And then I have like the safe word, and then share with families, like all of this as well. So that is a little bit of the planning. And now I want to talk about the actual experiences. So each of them were beautiful, all of these locations, and I have my Instagram linked below to see some of those pictures. But I think that as I develop this and I progress through my own understanding of what I would like for my own future in terms of social media and the cultural experiences that I gain, I think that, and there is every single place in isolation, it has its own beauty and culture, as well as shared like history. And I think that that ties in a lot of what I go for, which is those historical aspects in how the new world has been developed based off of facts from the past, and even like living testaments as to like what the geology is now like, or what are some of the animals and species that are still there or have gone extinct. So all of these play a role into like why I love to travel. And I think that as I've been saying this, when I'm taking my pictures, I really like to look at the sky, the water, like the natural elements. I think that they differ so much from where I'm currently are in time, and no single space is the same. So it just adds on to the beauty of like existing within that moment in present time. And I think that's so beautiful. It's just something that you will keep ingrained, as you continue to go through your own travels. So I would say that I loved not waking. I think I will begin with my routine that I disliked having. So, like the lack of stress, I think because that's the vacation portion of avoiding thinking about work or a mundane routine activities that I had grown accustomed to, having an alarm, doing X, Y, and Z at a certain time. And I think having the freedom of no compromises or commitments that I have to ensure things are done are is something that I enjoyed. And so I would be reading my book for like 3 hours or 2 hours uninterrupted, and just looking at the sky and then the water in front of me. I would be able to go up to the deck to the eighth floor, and then go into the hot tub, or and then go grab dinner and then come back. The times to eat, I'm unaccustomed to eating 3 times a day, but I was eating 3 times a day for a little bit, and then I remembered that I have to pair my physical health in, and there is a gym upstairs, so I would balance, and go into create that routine for me. So it was something new and exciting to just say, oh, let me go ahead and think about what I'm going to eat for today, given the open buffet, or going downstairs and dress up a little bit more professionally or whatnot. And this is a boat that's owned by, or I would say, has origins with the Netherlands. So a lot of the catering of just amenities and overall vision that this company has for its clients, I would say, is within the white realm. And what I mean by that is, I still remember, like, I need a white sauce. And so for me, a lot of my dishes are heavily like, spicy. So I was missing that sabor, like I was missing that flavor, and especially my homemade cooking, but nothing compares to that, you know? And so I I never complained about it. I think that I did enjoy eating some of the other dishes too. I found myself gravitating towards the Indian dishes, which was surprising because I rarely eat Indian dishes outside of a cruise or here at home. So that was really interesting for me to like know my taste. And I filled up my water bottle every single day. And the other thing I found myself doing was eating desserts a little bit more. So that was really interesting. And the other thing I would say I enjoyed was I rarely use the elevator. I want to say like 3 to 5 times I used it throughout my 14 days on the ship. And so I really wanted to. I was on the second floor, and a lot of the buffet and the upper deck where you can see the whole um, 360 of the location where I was at, really was, I would say, my reward for exercising and putting myself through that, because you could really get accustomed. Like, I found myself one day, I think it was like day number two, where I just wanted to lay down and rot and be able to just sink myself in bed. I found myself grabbing dine in service, and then I said, oh, I could even grab like for lunch and for dinner. But no, like I really wanted to take my butt out of my room and move around the views, right? Like, just there's so many views all around, which I really enjoyed. One of my favorite places I would say would be like the aft, so the back of the ship was just new terminology for me, or the side of the ship, where they're on the third, fourth floors, where you could just look out inside and be they're spaced out lounges where you could just be um, looking out into the horizon. And so that is one of the unique factors of being just, taking control of your own things that you want to do, right? Without any other things that you need to pay attention to, I would say, especially on the sun days at sea. And then every other day there was like a 6 day back to back to back countries where I would just go outside, connect to the internet, send my text messages, take my pictures, upload my pictures before I left, or deleted them before the day after, and just keep my audience engaged so that I'm able to keep up with uh, editing and whatnot for the next place. And so that was my, like, I was able to just really focus and hyper in on what I wanted, my own aesthetic, what I wanted my own reality to be, essentially. And I was able to get into communication through WhatsApp to all of the companies that I needed to. And the least favorite things, and then I mean, the biggest part I would say is immediately, I think after like day one, I met this couple, and they were over the age of 50. One was from France, and another was a doctor, teaching at a community college. And they were just so lovely and beautiful. I mean, my phone case is what I started the conversation, which is this clown. And so that was interesting. They were like, "Oh, you have a clown." And I said, yeah. And then we just started small talk. And then after that, a couple of days passed, and we ran into each other because out of the, I don't even know how many suites there are. I know that 1,500 at least of passengers were on board. And that is, I believe that is excluding the crew. So, but you can quote me on that. And we just ran into each other, like kind of similar, had the same routines in terms of like eating. So sometimes I would see them in the same at the same time for lunch, break for brunch, or dinner, and then we would sit together and just talk about our travels and life in general. And so they were so lovely. I feel that you really do attract like that positive energy that you put out, and when you put yourself out there, you're able to meet so many lovely people with energy that just make you feel youthful. And I think that really is where the magic between you and strangers occurs, is when you have a curiosity for life in general, really. And rather than like complaining, finding like a spin to the solution, because we would laugh, I think, a lot of things that were happening on there, just in terms of like the food. Or like, I remember one day there was a trip we made to Saint Martinique, or Martinique. A lot of places to me sound like saints, but they were closed on the Sunday, and the majority of the locations only open to, because they were aware that the cruise was coming. And so I was a little saddened by that, but they like found so much to do, and that was one of their favorite islands. And we just laughed about how I got lost low key. But then I was found by, not found, but I encountered a French speaking family, and then we made a whole trip to the Jardins de Balata, and it wasn't beautiful and incredible. Like, I am unable to really hone in on one specific island, because all islands were beautiful. I would say I had a lot more activities to do, like in Antigua and Barbuda, Turks and Caicos, and St. Lucia, and it was just incredible. The views of the mountains, the views of nature. And I was parasailing in Turks and Caicos, and being able to look at the whole island, like, you really just think about how minuscule and small we are compared to this chain of literally just sand and water and air and clouds right beneath your fingertips, right? So it's just the feeling can never be encapsulated into some words. I think that you really have to experience it for yourself, and enjoy and indulge in its beauty and embrace it. So with that said, I think that a couple of my mini, like, things I would say I would redo or just considered strongly are the professional days. Not even professional days, professional attire when you're downstairs in the dining room. That was my lowest factor, to be honest. I not lowest factor. I'm unsure why I keep saying factor. I think that it was just a a two out of the three times I was asked to wear shorts, so I wore shorts. I mean, I wore pants, and I had to cover my shoulders, and that's just the way that they were professional. So who knows, whoever's listening to this, what your thoughts on that? But I think that I'd like to be in a different type of outerwear, but each their own, I would suppose. And then my other thing I would say is being able to, and I don't, yeah, I think that my other just discretion was being able to. Actually, I'll have to think about it because I did write it down, but longer days. I would say longer days on the some of the places. I think that mm, that is something that I would like to have spent more time like doing, or at least staying overnight. I'm unable to control that. I think that if I had my own businesses, that maybe that's what I would do. But again, that's my own personal trips that I could take outside of the cruise as well. So that is something. Oh, and this was interesting, being asked if I worked there. A lot of people that were working there were Indonesian, like the white collared work, blue collared workers serving the food, serving the hosts, and the people, the janitors, and the people who cleaned the rooms daily. Yeah, that was interesting. And so I remember like being asked, "Oh, I've never seen you on there," and it sounded a little suspicious, but I was, I'm on island time. So for me, a lot of those comments just were not even at the top of my, like, should I give it a second thought? It was just like, okay, like this is people that have already some biases. Therefore, let me go ahead and engage in conversations to make them rethink that I am a person that is able to afford to come to a cruise and regardless without anybody, and enjoy myself. So that is what I wanted to, I came in with that thought process of like, okay, there's going to be some comments made about my appearance, and there were too. I think that my own evolution as a human and how I express myself through my attire, and honestly, my what I call my closet, my uniform, is unlike whatever perception they have of a male. So I would get, and naturally, I would just get stares, and I think that the people who did appreciate that made it known, and those are really like what I paid attention to as well, is how open-minded I think a lot of folks were, and I was unbothered, and even though there were kids on there, the amount of kids compared to other cruises apparently was minimal. So it was something that I enjoyed, to be honest, just being around the older population. And I think that the last thing is, if you're there for food, many people that I spoke to enjoy the food on Volendam, and I believe Holland America in general. The party ships are Atlantis or Virgin, and but they could be more expensive, and you have to book really. Um, you have to be really prepared and book in advance. So maybe that's a consideration. I know that some friends and I would like to book an Alaskan cruise, and I heard that that really is beautiful. And really, really, the last thing is that there are world cruises, and that really has piqued my interest because people can be on there for over 100 days and sail like multiple ports around the Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, and just knowing the cost of some of these places individually to go alone is phenomenal because I believe some places that I've seen to go to Antarctica are over 7,000. However, they're including this in some of their actual trips. So as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, this is actually doable. What I need is time, the time off, the time to enjoy that. So I am really grateful that I'm expanding my own knowledge in meeting new people and what they've done, but also being open to a new mode in this era of time to travel and invest in myself. So for anyone out there who's thinking of like, wow, should I do this? Should I not? I hope that you take away something helpful, and whether it's from this Google Doc or planning or making sure that others are aware of where you are or even of your own research, I hope that this series that I'm creating develops into something much more so that the thought process really comes to mind. Uh, One thing that I missed to mention in here, I would say that is the main elephant in the room is the cost. And so that cost is broken down by the first, it was 3,500 for the ticket. Second, it was my flight to Miami and boarding from there, which was around 250. And then the excursions alone were about 1,000. And then the last thing I would say are gratuities and spending on a souvenir, which is around another 400. So I think overall I would say about 5,000, and that is definitely not easy money, spending money for a lot of people, and I recognize that. However, I think that with this, for me, it is an investment back into myself and being able to take away this knowledge from being able to connect, especially with the indigenous places that I visited, because there is so much I could talk about, like the history that I learned, like again going back to the ancestral lands of where some of the people that were enslaved and brought over from the continent of Africa or all around the world, and how the plantations were there that are being powered and are powering some of the economies, which again is the sad part for some of these places. And I really take into consideration how what does it mean for me to visit these places and the privilege that I carry, like what I would like to do with that. And I think bridging that and educating more about taking these places to see yourself is done with care and intentionality too, right? Like what do you gain from it? It's not just a destination, these are people's lives that are in these places. So uplifting them, recognizing them, affirming them, and connecting with them for me has been invaluable. And when I connect with my friends and talk about it with others that I know, I can make that connection and even like quantum leap, right, of time of wow, this is where we can connect, and how to create, how to put these more on the map, and and just recognize for their worth and beauty that they contribute to this world. So I am really excited about this and hope to continue talking about it more for the rest of my life. Well, thank you, and until the next one, keep traveling.